What are we going to talk about today?
So I heard that English was considered the lingua franca of today. Well, there are many factors to determine the lingua franca.
Well, yeah, but let's talk about ideology.
Yes.
Hello, darling.
Hello, darling.
How are you?
I'm quite fine. And yourself?
Quite.
Okay. So, Anastasia,
Charlotte.
I wanted to inform you about some research I made about common law.
Oh, is that so? Tell me more, darling.
So, did you know that common law originated in the Middle Ages in England?
Well, of course, darling. Common law is a system of law developed by judges, courts, and similar tribunals in order to decide individual cases that contain a presidential effect on a future class.
Well, yes. And do you know that the ideals that spread to about 1/3 of the world's population? And well, since 2.3 billion people live in common law jurisdiction.
Is that so?
Well,
You don't
yes.
say.
Well, yes, darling, of course. These countries include the United States, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Canada, and many more.
So you are saying, darling, that since common law has wisely spread the English language, it has become dominant in many countries, which led to colonization?
Well, yes, indeed, Anastasia.
Oh, Tata. When Chinese troops violently retook the square in Beijing, where pro-democracy protesters had set up for weeks, the Tiananmen Square massacre left an unknown number dead, with some estimates in thousands, and overpowered a democratic movement. People even went into hunger strikes. 600 people were taken to the hospital on the 4th day, and thousands of people poured into the square. School children thrust tiny fists into the air, and chants of "Long live democracy," "Down with corruption," were screamed. Workers arrived from Beijing, the capital iron and steel works, and the Beijing Jeep Corporation. Between those chants was a group of teenage students chanting
Get up, stand up.
a song by Bob Marley, carrying a white and black banner with a picture of Bob Marley himself. This proves that even though it is an English song, it still works for protests around the world, even times of needs, such as the Chinese in this horrible period. This proves the power of the English songs that were written by Bob Marley in Jamaica. It shows how English has spread so much that it is even used to protest against the evil government of China.
Okay, people, listen to me. Oh, yeah, right. Okay. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights consisted of 30 articles that included the subsequent international treaties, regional human rights instruments, national constitution, and other laws, which was proclaimed by the United Nations in 1948. So, the UN this creation consisted of a draft in a 2-year period by 18 members of the Commission of Human Rights, which was chaired by Eleanor Roosevelt, an English-speaker human rights advocate. As a result, this was efficient to spread the English language since it was mainly written by English spokespeople. And as some may know, the UN assemblies are held and by countries since countries are seated alphabetically in the General Assembly according to English translations of the countries' names. Fun fact. So yeah. And now, let's welcome Catherine Smith.
Catherine Smith is a singer-songwriter of Gods and Roses.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
That's great. So, tell me about your CD. What inspired you to write it?
Well, I decided to write and dedicate the CD to all the Christians out there in the world.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh my God. So why did you decide to produce a CD in English?
Well, I decided to write the CD in English since, in my opinion, English is the most influential language in the world.
How so?
Well, the Holy Bible has been translated into more than 2,000 languages. So we can see that English is the most translated version of the Holy Bible.
Oh my God, how interesting. I really love your new CD.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. I really, really appreciate your comments and everything you told me.
You're
today.
welcome. Thank God for that.
Thank God. Catherine Smith's new album, Gods and Roses, is out now, available in iTunes.
Beautiful people. Very good, teacher. Peace and love. Peace and love.
Today's lesson is about ways of being a good Christian.
Why not always be a good Jewish?
Well, love, Christianity is the most famous religion throughout all the world. Even the Bible is translated mostly in English.
Wow, that's quite true. You have opened my eyes, teacher. I'm so grateful. Teacher.
Pupils, you all have to learn English. It's very important.
Why? So we can read the Bible?
Yes.
On January 6, 1941, our dearest United States President, Franklin D. Roosevelt, articulated the following goals: freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. As many may know, these freedoms have been adopted worldwide. The European Union's internal market is one example, which include countries such as France, Italy, Germany, and many others, European countries, of course. The European internal market consists of a single market that seeks to guarantee the free movement of goods, capital, service, and people, which essentially adopts the ideals of the four freedoms that President FDR articulated.
Wait, let me turn off the light. So today I wanted to tell you guys about the Constitution. Did you know that it has influenced most constitutions around the world and its legal thinking? People such as Benito Juárez of Mexico, José Rizal of the Philippines, and Sun Yat-sen of China. Even phrases have been borrowed. Both the American and the Russian constitutions provide for a president to be elected by nationwide popular vote. Some examples are: after the American Revolution began, it influenced Northwestern Europe and its colonial connections. Also, after the decline of Napoleon's reputation, it was referenced by Latin American, Caribbean, and European nationalists. After the Spanish-American War, nationalist movements borrowed from the US Constitution in Asia and Latin America. And after the World War I, its influence spread with movements for decolonization of Africa, Mid East, and Asia. That's what I needed to tell you people. Okay, in my opinion, I think that English could be considered the lingua franca since many countries nowadays use this language to communicate with others for many reasons such as ideology or even business purposes. An example would be when the North Americans came to Venezuela a long time ago to help Venezuelans and teach them how to use our petroleum. We can see by this that Venezuelans had to learn English to communicate with the North Americans and to understand their instructions.
I believe that English should be the lingua franca for several reasons, such as ideology is one of the many factors determining English as the lingua franca, as well as economic and political power in others. The ideas within the four freedoms that I stated before is one of the examples why I believe English should be the lingua franca. And also, in countries of the outer circle of areas such as India, Malawi, Singapore, and others, where English is not the primary native language, like for the countries such as USA, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and some others, constitute a long history of English language usage. This has happened as a result of political and colonial dominance imposed in English-speaking countries. So, there's an increase in English language within these expanding countries that I mentioned, like India, Malawi, and Singapore, which are other factors that have contributed to the technological and economic advance combined with expanding globalization. So I conclude that English has overpowered most of the languages nowadays. Therefore, I believe it should be the lingua franca, although maybe it could be another language, but right now English is a very dominant language.
I believe English could deserve to be the lingua franca since I think some language has to be it. I think it could be Spanish, Portuguese, Mandarin, or really any other language in the world that is relatively not as hard to learn for the other cultures. Since English is already taking over the world as the lingua franca, I think it is okay for it to be it. Any language should be the lingua franca in order for international business and economy, so trade, as well as politics to occur peacefully and easily.